So, welcome to another episode of White and Woke at Work. I'm here today with Tara, not the HR lady, and I'm pleased to speak with her on chronicling her journey to anti-racism on our show. So, welcome, Tara. How are you?
Thank you. I'm really good, Janelle. Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here. I love your show.
Thanks so much for coming on. So, tell me a little bit about, I guess, how long ago you've been an active anti-racist and what brought you to anti-racism work.
That's a great question. So I'm going to be 40 this year. I turned 40 in literally 2 months from today, in fact.
Wow.
And I say that because my entire life. So I think most people, and I don't know about your listeners, but I share very openly sort of about my journey. I'm adopted. I was adopted by biracial parents. I have a Black father and a white mother. And I grew up in really white Orange County, California. And I grew up in the 80s. Racism, obviously, in the 80s in a lot of the country was still like KKK people. I mean, and that's just a fact. My parents actually, when they got married, it was still illegal in many states for them to wed. So I say my journey started from the very beginning, having had a lot of experiences that many people who look like me don't have. Everything from getting pulled over because I'm crying in the car and someone thought my father kidnapped me,
Hmm.
to hearing him be called the N-word, to having myself be called an N-word lover. I talk a lot about like my brother and my experience. We're the same age. We grew up together, obviously same graduating class and everything. And watching just the experiences that he and my dad had versus the experiences that I had was very, very, very telling about where we were. And I was in California.
Yeah.
So I think I'm pretty lucky in the sense that I was in California, but even there was still seriously a huge issue, not only in the workplace, but just everywhere in everyday life. I mean, just unnecessarily getting pulled over by the police,
Right.
being harassed, etc. I've been doing the work pretty much since I first started in the corporate world back in 1999.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't intend to join the HR or the people space or anything like that. In fact, I did marketing and sales and all that stuff when I first started out, and just found a real deep love for being able to help people achieve their best selves on the one side, and then the other side, help companies really make a workplace more inclusive, more about the people instead of just, checking boxes and stuff. So I've
Yeah.
been doing the work a while, but it's been in my passion since I was born.
Well, we're gonna talk a little bit about that because I can just hear my listeners tell me, wait a second, this is supposed to be the White and Woke series, and you're
Yeah.
bringing on a biracial girl. So are you
I'm
actually
not.
you're not
No, I
biracial?
am adopted. So I am 100% white all day. Like I actually did 23andMe in hopes that maybe there was a smidge of something, And no, like I'm literally like 65% Norwegian and the rest of it is like a mixture between like French and all of Europe. So no, I am not biracial. I am totally white and my hair is naturally blonde. I haven't had it colored since.
Were you adopted at birth?
No, I went through a series of like back and forth in
Yeah.
foster care, and stuff like that. But I've always known Gloria and John, who are my parents
Yeah.
now. I've been in and around them since I was pretty much since I was born,
And
just not
so
with them.
how has having, I guess, a Black father, other than, the harassment that you endured occasionally here and there, or the misunderstandings, they thought that, your father perhaps was your boyfriend, but how has
Or
having
my abductor.
or your yeah, or your abductor, how has having a Black father, I guess, shaped your identity then, and then informed how you treat others and your anti-racism work going forward?
So that's a great question, and the reason I say it is because I went through a really serious period of wanting to be Black, and I think that's something that when you have parents that are, both white and Black, and I'm white, obviously, but the way that we were treated by the Black community was, and this is just my experience, I don't know about everybody's, but the Black community was always just so much more welcoming, accepting, inviting, um, tolerant, willing to accept me
Hmm.
into their lives, as we are the white community. has always been not everybody certainly, but
Right.
much more much less receptive to my father joining in on the party. But my mom and I totally welcome when we're with like my dad's family, you know?
Right. Mhm.
And so that's a really interesting sort of thing to see as a child, to see like a good example. I got lost once in the mall
Mhm.
and I'm looking around and I was looking for my dad, but I saw a black man
Yep.
and I knew that he would help me. Like I knew that he would help me. That was safe for me. I was able to go up to him and he did. I was able to go up to him and I said, "You look like my dad." And I'm like 5, you know, and that's the best way I can describe it. I'm like, "You look like my dad and I can't find him. Can you help me?"
Yeah.
And and a funny story is I got lost at a carnival. Apparently I just took off a lot. When I was about 7, same thing happened, but I went up to a white man and he literally told me as a child, like, to F off. He
Hmm.
doesn't know where my dad is. So I think like for me, I've always had such great experiences in and around the Black community that it has obviously made me a huge champion for the Black community,
Mhm.
because I've seen the way that there's absolute just disgust and lack of tolerance and lack of treating someone like a human being
Right.
in that community, yet they have always to me been so inviting. And so I think it's really shaped everything from how I approach people. And here's differently. Like, like you're Janelle, you're a Black woman,
Yeah.
and I am going to speak with you the same way that I speak with anybody else, like Tracy Sponenberg, as an example, who's a white woman.
Right.
I'm not going to have different conversations. I'm going to be myself with you, be myself with her. And I think that's a part of it. It's like I don't, and I won't say, you know, I don't see color, but I think because I do, and I think that's so important that you do.
Mhm.
But I don't approach people or don't, you know, advocate differently for all people. I am just a louder person when it comes to Black lives, especially now, especially in the last 10 years of my work. Like many people have said, that house is on fire right now.
Yeah.
So that's the one I'm championing for right now.
Mhm.
And I think when you have the ability to just be a part of the communities that you're a part of, I'm a part of the Black community. I'm
Yeah.
a part of the woman community. I'm a part of the white community. I'm a part of the LGBTQ community. When you're just comfortable in those spaces,
Yeah.
this work is not work. This work is just what you would do
Yeah.
for anybody when anybody is not being given the same opportunities, treated the same way. And so having a Black dad, I think, certainly showed me a Black community that I probably wouldn't have otherwise had a lot of experience with because I grew up in a very white area.
Mhm.
But as a grown up, it's so funny how little I think about it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's something that I don't think about it. I just do the work because that's the work that needs to be done right
You're just
now.
naturally able to, I guess, fit in all those spaces and with all those groups because of your experiences. So tell me, I guess, a little bit about your dad. Like, what type of man is he? Because not all what is it, kinfolk or your skin folk or kinfolk or
That's right.
what
You're
type of
absolutely
guy
right.
was he?
My dad was amazing. He passed away in 2016, and he actually appears in every episode of my show. And I'm going to tilt this up so you can see him. Oh no, I forgot we put him out there for Halloween.
Okay.
That sounds terrible, but him and my grandmother and T'Challa, we have a little memorial, and then our friend Dave, we have a little memorial of everybody who's passed, and we move their ashes out.
Okay.
Uh, but he's usually sitting right up there. I'm sorry. My dad was awesome. So if you could imagine the most wonderful, loving, all-consuming human being, like that was him. He loved me so much, so unconditionally. He called me Fred, so he didn't call me Tara. He literally called me Fred. I have no idea why.
Yeah.
I actually wish I would have asked him before he died, but I just accepted it. He'd called me that my whole life. He's everybody's dad, he's the cool guy. Like he's always at my cheer games. He was always there with like that giant VHS camcorder, because that's what you had back then, with those huge ones.
Hmm.
And there was my dad sitting up in the stands every game, every assembly, every gymnastics practice. When I graduated, there was my dad ready. He was so proud, so awesome. Like literally the best father anyone could ever ask for.
Was
And
he
it
like militant activist, like a
no, so
pro-black
my dad was a pot smoking, like rock and roll music loving, absolute activist from a marching standpoint, but so easygoing, like not fighting a fight. My dad was one. You know who my dad was? My dad was Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, minus the sex scandal, right? So Morgan Freeman, but smokes pot and loves everybody. Like that's really my dad. Lenny Kravitz adjacent. Like my dad wishes he was Lenny Kravitz, probably a little bit, but like not that cool, but like a little cooler, like Morgan Freeman cool, you know? And he said fuck a lot. Can I say fuck on your show? I'm sorry.
Go for it. That's what you do.
I do say it a lot. He was like maybe with like a little bit of Samuel L. thrown in because everything was like motherfucker, but like in a happy way, not in a kind of way, not militant, very easygoing. Like my mom is the mean one. My dad was awesome.
What was your mom like?
My mom is still that way. She is militant. She is demanding and expecting. And
I like yourself?
Just a little. I mean, right? Like just a little bit. I think where her and I differ is that she's super educated. I mean, I'm super educated too. That's not what I was going to say, but she's super educated, but believes in the value of what women can bring to the table. My mom is an activist. My mom is one who goes to marches. My mom is who has the signs. But with that, she really pushed that on me. I mean, I was valedictorian of my high school. I graduated magna cum laude from college. Mm-hmm. Like she was very like, you have to go, you have to do all of this stuff. And she was like a Rizzo, smoker, like smart, but like not a cheerleader, not all of that. And she really pushed that on me. Okay. So like she wanted a Sandy. If it's like a Grease movie, like she wanted a Sandy, but she was a Rizzo. And I think I was like somewhere in between because I'm cool, but I'm also a little cheerleadery, She's still awesome, still that way, still fighting the good fight, still taking down trolls related to the
but it's important because they taught you to be who you are and to use your voice and your platform the way that you do. So just let's tell the viewers who don't necessarily know about some of the posts and things and the F-bombs that you drop, and then you can talk about your book a little bit. And
oh sure. So I'm really vulnerable when I post on LinkedIn, when I post everywhere, when I talk on the show, etc. I talk a lot about things that have happened in my life. An example would be like my brother and I were driving while Black. He was picking me up from from work. I worked at Disneyland. Yeah. We were on the 5 freeway headed back home, and we got pulled over. Got off on the like a side street. I think like a couple miles down from Disney. Got pulled over, no reason, got us out of the car, had us lay on the ground. And I'm mouthy, right?
Yeah.
We've already had the talk. Like we had the talk because I had to have the talk. And for anybody who doesn't know what the talk is, I don't know if you've covered that on your show, but it's like that moment where your parents tell you what you have to do, typically with people of color in a situation where the police are there or there's any kind of like authoritative figure. You have to be even more respectful just on the chance that you hope to not die that day.
Right.
And that is just crazy. And I'd never seen it in action until this moment. And when I was 17, and I wrote about it. And it was a really defining moment for me when I realized 2 things. So one, my voice could potentially have gotten my brother killed. Mm-hmm. So I had to shut the fuck up. Mm-hmm. And I had to have the wherewithal to be able to do that because they're calling me names. Right. They're calling him names. They're being disparaging in a way that I want to lash out and retaliate because I can. That's white privilege. I'm not going to get shot. My brother will. So Ricky looked at me and was like, the look he gave was just, you can't do that. And I didn't. And I shut up and we came home together and we cried all the way home. And I talk about stuff like that. I talk about championing for people who have been underrepresented, who have been absolutely oppressed in the workplace. I'm a workplace advocate, absolutely transfers over to my personal life too. But I think more importantly, there's a lot of people doing the social justice work out there.
Mhm.
I want to do it in here because the stuff that is happening in our world is directly impacting our workplace. I talk a lot about that, but I also talk a lot about what's happening with women, with women's rights. Last night, in fact, Amy Coney Barrett was, confirmed and sworn in to be the next Supreme Court justice.
Yes.
And I talk a lot about those sort of things. I had an abortion when I was 17, and I'll tell you that I was safe. I had a condom. I was on the pill. We did everything right. The condom broke. I got pregnant, and I had a choice to make. I could either have the baby and potentially derail the entire future that I had set for myself. And that's just a fact. I didn't want kids. Or I could exercise my legal right to choose
Right.
at 17. And that's exactly what I did. And my parents drove me.
Mhm.
My parents weren't ashamed of me. My parents had taught me well, and my parents were happy that I was exercising my right to choose. Just a little bit, I posted about this. Back in like the 1960s, my mom had twins who were best friends,
Mhm.
and one of them got pregnant. She was 19 and ended up having an illegal like back alley abortion and bled out and died.
Wow.
And the thing is that what we're doing right now and what's happening here in America with the Supreme Court justices is like potential ability not to eliminate abortions,
Yeah.
just to eliminate safe abortions. And here's the thing. It's my body, it's my choice. I certainly am not pro abortion.
Right.
I am certainly pro you making the decision for yourself. And so I post a lot about those sorts of things, which draw a varying reaction. If I post Black Lives Matter, I get a lot of all lives matter. And I have to then go back and crush those trolls, as you say. I do say fuck a lot, but I don't use it in a disparaging way. I use it for emphasis because that's how I speak. People, sometimes fuck is warranted. And when it is, I feel like you have to shout it out from the rooftops. When I say Black Lives Matter, I mean Black fucking lives matter. I do not mean all lives matter. They do. You already know that.
Right.
They don't right now. So I'm really passionate about a lot of things: anti-racism, women in leadership, and then opportunities for everybody: LGBTQIA, people of color,
Mhm.
women. Like, that is so important to me, that we have the same opportunities and the same treatment as the white patriarchy that's been running the world since the beginning of time. We're all valuable. We all have a story. We all have a voice.
For sure. So
I,
talk to me a little bit about some of the things that you're doing to
yeah.
dismantle white patriarchy.
Well, calling out the white patriarchal oppressors, for one. I do a lot of work with companies who are interested and invested in doing a paradigm shift for their organization. In fact, there are a lot of white patriarchy people who honestly want to be different, who recognize the value. You have all white boards and you wonder, is it just how it happened? I don't know. I'm not going to speculate.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I do know that there are people who want to change. That's something that I'm really good at doing, is coming into an organization. That's probably the biggest part of what I do.
Mhm.
Coming into an organization and going, we have to figure out exactly all the things that have led us to here.
Right.
And then we have to shift them to do differently. And that starts with that mindset at that highest level. I used to do it as a chief people officer. I was that for 12 years in organizations.
Mhm.
I left at the start of COVID, didn't know it was the start of COVID.
Right.
I left to do this kind of work full time in a louder and bigger way. And that's when I started Not the HR Lady Show, when I started writing books, when I started consulting for companies who were really interested and invested in shaping the world of work differently, even if they all look like me right now.
Yes.
They realize that all of us who look like me do not have all of the information and all of the experiences to make a robust workplace.
Mhm.
I think Disney is a good example of that. If you go to their page, they have all white, just white, all day long.
Yes.
And I think what's really interesting, though, is that they are putting and investing a lot of money in shifting that paradigm, because that is not their workforce. Their workforce is made up of people from all over the world.
Right.
And I think having that wherewithal and taking that moment and that breath to go, you know what, we fucked up. We're going to change it. That's all we can ask for. So I think that's part of the work, right? The other part of the work is using my platform. I've got a really big and engaged and pretty vast international network. And I think having the ability to say it in a way that uses humor, that sometimes calls it out really strongly, sometimes gives very personal stories that can help you illustrate the point I'm trying to make, has been really great. People have been really receptive. And the messages I've got from a lot of white people, frankly, which is heartening, because that's who's gonna change the system. We can't ask the Janelles of the world to say, hey, you know what, you need to dismantle systemic racism in the workplace, girl. That's not for you. That's for us to help do. That's for us to use what we have to help break those silos down. And I'm heartened to see that so many people are taking it seriously. A lot are doing just PR statements, and I'm not talking about those people, but the ones who are really invested. The ones who are doing it for PR, they'll be called out soon enough. They have been, like Wells Fargo.
Yeah, I've got a blog post coming up about that this week, that just basically talks about, the performative statements in those company, Black Lives Matter, blah, blah, blah statements, but with nothing more, right? And it's precisely why I'm doing this video series. It's to highlight, the inequities for marginalized people in workplaces, but to also educate a whole, hopefully new cohort of anti-racists who can champion our cause. Because like you said, we're not in the majority. We don't have the power in society. And so, like you said, it's not for us to be dismantling institutions and changing, the face of them and challenging, what representation looks like. So thank you for doing that and using your platform to call it out. Is your book also doing the same or similar thing, or what?
Yeah. So thank you. My book is called Fuck the Snacks, which I know is a strong title.
There was a bit of a lag. Say that again.
Oh, did it come out? My book is called Fuck Your Office Snacks. And I know that's a really strong title, which has elicited a lot of reaction, but that was the point.
Yeah.
I don't care that you have a slide. I don't care that you offer free cold brew. I don't care that you have a doctor on site. None of us do. None of us really do. We don't care about the stuff. We care about things that matter. Mental wellness, the systemic racism plaguing organizations, your hiring bias. My book is chock full of it's a self-improvement book, if you will, or a professional development book for an individual. It's not really for companies, though you could read it as a leader, obviously, and take some takeaways, but it's really about empowering yourself to champion. My favorite chapter is chapter 13, and it's called Mind Fucks or Mental Wellness. And that mind fucking is an example of it that I use in the book. Is when I was going to be hired for an organization. I'm not going to say which one.
Okay.
And when I got there and I got the job and all of that, the team let me know that the moratorium, the directive, was that they were not interviewing men for the role because they'd had a lot of just issues. That's part of what I've done throughout my career and what has given me a lot of success as an internal chief people officer, is coming in and fixing people's problems, crisis management, diagnosing where you guys screwed up, and then creating, different values, assembling teams, putting it all together, really walking the talk, getting the executives on the same page, et cetera. So because their issues were male driven, the moratorium was they weren't even interviewing men. That's hard, right? And that stuff happens all the time. It's unfortunate, but that's why this work is so important. An example would be a client recently, a potential client who I'm actually really close with, their CEO. And I didn't bid the job or anything like that. They reached out to me, the CEO, and was like, hey, so there's this committee, we're doing this thing, DEI is really important to us. They're kind of small. We really want to do some great training. We know you do that, et cetera, et cetera. So I have the call with the team, and they literally looked at me and asked this question, Janelle. They said, okay, if we hire you though, you're not Black. Does that make us look bad or whatever? And I made that face. Exactly. I was like, okay, look. So here's the thing. No one is talking about like, no one's asking everybody to fire their executive teams and replace it with Black people. Like nobody is saying that a DEI consultant has to exclusively be Black or a person of color or any kind of anything. Like people do this work. I am still a woman, so I think I still qualify. Not to mention, I absolutely have been doing this work before it was cool, before it was cool in vogue and where everybody's doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting place that I think a lot of companies really miss the mark on. And that's the perfect example of why this work is so important. It's like when we say Black Lives Matter, it's not like we're saying all other lives don't. And if we say you need to focus on DEI, that doesn't just mean you need to hire a Black person. Like, come on, but that's the sort of thing that we're up against.
Yeah.
And that happens so frequently. It's like,
a lot of fear.
I understand it.
There's a lot of fear right now. There's a lot of, in the white community, especially, they don't know what to do. I'm dealing with clients right now in certain corporations that they're just like, they're scrambling, they want to educate their teams. They want to, bring in the newest technology. They just don't know what to do. And I think it's really important, like, for us to say, you can have the heart for this work. You have to have the heart for this work. You have to have the heart for justice and for fairness and for equity. Otherwise, you're not going to, so you can be new in this space, or you can be, decades in, like you or myself, to, make the right contributions that need to happen. But you don't have to start discriminating and creating
don't be like okay, so we're not hiring a white person or we're not hiring a man. Like, no, that's the opposite of what we're saying. Like, that's not what anybody's talking about.
Pick the best and the brightest at all times, but it's okay to look outside of, white males for the best and the brightest, when they apply, right? So just broaden your worldview, see, the forest for the trees, and do better. That's basically it, right?
Exactly. Yes.
So what's next on the horizon for you, Tara? What are you going to do next? You're moving and shaking. You wrote your book. Where's your book available so people can get it?
Thank you. So you can get it right on my website, notthehrlady.com. It is in pre-sale. It actually comes out on the 13th of November. So right now it's pre-sale, but I have a lot of cool bundles and stuff, which give you some value adds, some Not the HR Lady merch. Some time with me. I do a lot of executive coaching. So I have a bundle that includes that as well. And I'm really excited. It'll be distributed everywhere that you normally get books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, etc. After the 13th.
Awesome.
And but what is next for me?
Yeah.
Oh, next for me. So I have a lot of really cool stuff on the horizon. We are doing a second book, which is called Don't Suck as a Boss, a Movie Lover's Guide to Leadership. So that'll be really fun. We have a webinar series that goes along with that. Season 2 of Not the HR Lady is coming out in December, which we're very excited about. Season 1 was just a smashing success, and really excited to continue on that journey. That's a show about all things people, no bullshit. So it is absolutely not an HR show. It is a people show. We talk a lot about anti-racism. We talk a lot about women in the workplace, working parents, etc. And then we have a third book, which I'm really excited about. That'll be out though in March. Our second book is coming out in January. And then our third book is coming out in March. And that one is all about, I don't want to give away the title just yet, but that one is all about remembering where you came from. It's another leadership book. Well, I'm just going to tell you, it's called I'm from Corporate, a leader's guide for remembering where you came from. So it was inspired actually by, I went to a place and I was chatting with a server and or a person who turned out to be a server. And the thing they said to me was, well, no, I'm not from corporate. I'm just a server. So you probably don't want to chat. And I'm like, no, I do want to chat with you. Actually, I'm having a great, I don't care where you're from. Like nobody's from corporate. Like we were all servers once. We were all entry level. We were all, way back when. And I thought, I remember back then for me, when I was entry level. And I remember the woman, she came in, her name was Paige Strosen, and maybe she'll hear this. I have not caught up with her. This was like 25 years ago. She came in and she was a rock star. She was everything I thought what corporate could be like. I was like, she came in, she taught us stuff. She was well-spoken. I just loved her. And that was kind of what set me on the trajectory of going down the route that I did in the people space. And I thought about when that guy said, like, I'm just a server, I'm not from corporate. Well, I remember when I wasn't from corporate either. And the person that shaped or changed my perception about what leadership should be in a good way.
Mhm.
And I think we forgot that somewhere along the way, a lot of leaders, that, hey, you weren't always in the C-suite. You weren't always a VP.
Yeah.
Do you even remember what it was like? People look at you. People look to you, look at you for answers. What are we doing? Are we modeling right? So I'm really excited about this particular part of the book. I love to keep myself busy. So those 3 books on the horizon, plus obviously our regular show. And then we have one more thing, if that wasn't enough, because I need a fun hobby and I really like true crime.
Mhm.
So we are doing a nonprofit driven web series called Killer Colleagues.
Okay.
And it's all about workplace murders, because if you Google it, you will be so surprised how prevalent workplace murder is around the world. And
No,
so
I'm chuckling because I'm just like, oh God, Tara.
I know, but it's
Not
crazy.
sure.
So it kind of gives you that fix though, that that Dateline or like investigation discovery fix, but it's all rooted in the workplace. And then with all of the proceeds going to mental wellness in the workplace.
Well, that's good because we certainly need that, right? We definitely need to take care of our people and prevent, these incidents from happening because they're based entirely on mental illnesses, right?
Yeah, usually rooted in something.
Rooted in, that or in discrimination and harassment and marginalization and bullying and, microaggressions.
All of those things. Yeah.
Racism
Exactly.
is rooted.
Racism, stop it.
Tara,
All the ism.
thank you so much for coming on today. It's Tara Furiani. Am I saying your name right?
Yeah, you got it.
Tara Furiani, not the HR lady. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. I'm so happy that you agreed to do this with me and to share a little bit about your personal life, your personal journey, and all the things you're doing to be actively anti-racist. Hopefully it will inform and inspire a whole new generation of anti-racists like yourself. And
I appreciate it.
come back on anytime.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You got to come on our show.
I will. And tell people how to reach you. So it's Tara, not the HR lady, on LinkedIn. Do they just look?
That's right.
Not the HR lady? Yep. And
it's linkedin.com, the in, and then it's just not the HR lady. It's not the HR lady everywhere. So you can find me on all social.
Perfect. Thank you so much again.
Yay. Bye, Janelle. Thank you.
Thank you. See you guys on the next episode. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Bye.